Alrighty, a Catterson TI-3 TV Cat. Today let's take a look at Legendary Drops video. Black Myth Wukong is a threat.
Black Myth Wukong is one of the most anticipated games of this year. If you're anything like me, you're looking forward to it. I can't wait. I'm a big Souls fan to begin with, so I can't wait to get my hands on it. But with that said, it's also been a game that's had a lot of hit pieces ran on it ever since the game's reveal. Just recently, I ended up reading an article from The Guardian where they're going in and talking and parroting the same points that I've seen many other journalists say and trying to paint the game in a bad picture, specifically trying to send the message that, hey, yeah, it looks like a good game, but, the developer doesn't say very nice things and we probably shouldn't support them.
Whoa.
So today what I want to do is I want to talk about the media's obsession with Black Myth Wukong, but more than anything, I want to talk about why they're obsessed. If you haven't heard, Black Myth Wukong is blowing up.
I got some ideas.
The game is already the most wishlisted game on Steam, and just the other day, the benchmark tool brought in over 85,000 players at its peak. And
yeah, there was a lot of strides on the fact going on, right?
Optimization testing tool brought in more players, 40 times the amount of players as Sony's open beta of Concord. Low blow, I know.
And then we got 2 million players playing at the same time after release. Would you look at that?
No, but it'll become a little bit more relevant later on. With that said, Black Myth Wukong's developer Game Science likely has a breakout hit on their hands, and this is their debut title. But there are those that are out there that want to try and stand in its way. Just a couple weeks ago, Tom Regan of The Guardian.
Oof, also I'm thinking, they need to be able to make a point that they're relevant, right? And I think they failed, and I think that's what it's all about.
Guardian wrote an article titled Black Myth Wukong, the summer's most exciting and most controversial video game. This beautiful looking action game is based on Journey to the West, the great Chinese novel, but its own journey to release has hit a bump in the road. Tom writes, after playing Wukong for an hour and a half in a London hotel suite, watched nervously by Game Science employees, I can confirm that, somewhat miraculously, this stunning Chinese mythological twist on Dark Souls delivers on that showy trailer. Marrying fluid-feeling combat and reflex-testing difficulty and the expensive filmic sheen of something like God of War. As I sprint through Wukong's dense jungle, ducking and dodging through a deadly array of flora and fauna, I come face to face with everything from gi-wearing toads to nightmarish gigantic-headed infants. Unlike many of its brutally challenging From Software-inspired peers, the difficulty in Wukong feels expertly judged. My simian avatar met a grisly end more times than I care to admit, but I persevered. Eventually, I defeated enough foes to unlock new abilities. Soon, I can perch atop my staff mid-attack, giving me an edge against its murderous mythological monsters. I can buzz around the forest as a stealthy cicada, summon flames from my glaive, and eventually topple a snarly, lorry-sized werewolf atop a crumbling temple. We're under great pressure, reflects one of Game Science's co-founders, who was introduced only as Ted. Game Science wouldn't give his full name via translator. This is the first time we have worked on a PC and console game, and we are also a new studio. So we really like to think how tolerant the players and the market is towards us. Their excitement encourages us. However, the thinking of Chinese people tends to be, we look at the risks. And therefore, when we're faced with such great encouragement, the best thing we can do is to try our best to satisfy the expectations of the players and communicate with the players in a very honest way. China has dominated the mobile gaming market. You look at everything that HoYoverse has done, from Genshin Impact to Zenless Zone Zero, Honkai Star Rail, Honkai Impact 3rd. These games have made a lot of money. They have a lot of players. And what they've done is they've actually paved the way for Chinese developers to be able to reach global markets. Something that was relatively inaccessible for them in the past.
I do like that
and
too.
In that, I'm actually kind of surprised that we're not seeing more skepticism when it comes to a new studio that hasn't released a game before, that's releasing a AAA game that looks as good as this does, and it's coming from a country that we normally don't see a lot of games come from in the first place. But I think it's great that we are seeing that support, because from my perspective, I just want to see more video games, and the more countries that are out there that are making them, the more diverse ideas and cool games that we can play, and that's what I'm all about.
And plus we got Unreal Engine, apparently being very good to work with, and this is apparently the first Unreal Engine 5 game that's going big, and hey, it looks beautiful.
And to be honest, we haven't really even seen that many AAA games come from China in the first place. I think the only one that I can think of off the top of my head is like Rocket Blade Point. That's pretty much about it. But one of the things the developers brought up was that they feel like they're under a lot of pressure. And I don't think people really understand or recognize just how much pressure that they're under. Because keep in mind, they have far more rules and restrictions that they need to follow before they can even try to ship a game outside of their country. And way more restrictions than Western studios have, that's for sure. But with that said, you also have, clashes in culture.
To be fair, Western studios, the big ones, they create their own trouble for themselves, right? Let's not forget that. So while they have a PR person that makes it seem like everything's fine and dandy, well, the people actually developing the game, they were under a lot of pressure in the West too, at least when it comes to the AAA space.
And things like that. And I think what they've chose to do, especially with Black Myth Wukong, is just, emulate the success of another game and try to adapt their ideology.
And that can be a lot more demoralizing when you have these people, higher ups, who you're interacting with on a daily basis, and they're like part of the company, but so it makes it awkward to figure out what's going on, what you can do and what you should do. While when you have regulations from outside, at least you're on the same page, presumably, with the rest of the company. You just want to make a great game, and so actually having the stuff outside could be a preferable situation.
Or their philosophies of game design into their game, and that's what Black Myth Wukong kind of represents to me. It's a smart idea. You're going to be able to hook up with a pretty large audience because a lot of people really like Souls games, especially after Elden Ring. So it's a great idea to be able to reach as many players as you possibly can. But one of the other difficulties that they're running into is one that's completely unnecessary. And it's the fact that for some odd reason, there are a lot of Western critics that do not want to see this game get any level of success. Mm-hmm. Tom continues with his article saying, I am unfortunately met with very little honest communication when I bring up a report from IGN which related alleged sexist comments from multiple developers at Game Science, as well as those in leadership roles. I presented Ted with the opportunity to address those claims of misogynistic posts and whether he feels they represent Game Science's values. Instead, I am shut down with a hasty no comment from their UK PR representative. And
I'm seeing two things here. First one, person writing this, they clearly wanna prove that they have a unique value they offer to the people who pay them. And they're being paid to write a very particular kind of commentary, so this isn't very representative of anyone at all, really, besides the people who pay the bill. Right? So this is the people paying the bill for this. Want to see that this person is carrying their weight according to their metrics, right? So I don't even want to be hard on the people doing the writing here, because they're getting paid to write the story. All right, so that is that. And then I look at what's being written here, and I'm thinking definitely an underhanded way to go about this from the writer, nonetheless, right? So I don't want to diminish that. We got the question being, okay, is this representative of your company's values? And it's like, how are you gonna answer that? Like, why do you expect a gaming company to have a set of value statements as to supposed, alleged sexist comments? So first you gotta assess what are these comments, then you gotta actually have any sort of value statement that extends to areas totally outside of telling an uplifting or otherwise inspiring story, right? Because sexist comments, is that like the main concern of telling a compelling story, whether or not there's like sexist characters in it? Probably not. There probably aren't any in the game itself anyway. So again, this is somewhat outside of the scope of what a gaming company would be concerned with in the first place. Doesn't mean it's unimportant, but asking that and expecting anything besides a no comment, it feels a bit underhanded. So anyway, let's keep watching.
Ted, I am shut down with a hasty no comment from their UK PR representative, and then after a long wait, given a longer statement of no comment via Ted's translator. I am then told that Game Science's US PR agency will follow up later with a prepared statement, only to be sent the following. Game Science is focused on the demo at this time and will only answer questions related to gameplay.
Smart
the same
move.
thing happened to an IGN reporter at a demo in Los Angeles last month. It is disappointing that Game Science is opting to invite journalists to speak to them and play the game, but refusing to answer their questions. Perhaps there is no reassurance to offer, A generous reading of the situation would be that this is an inexperienced studio petrified of saying the wrong thing. Yet, in failing to say anything at all, Game Science is also failing to...
They didn't fail. They did not fail at saying anything at all. They succeeded to say nothing about this, besides no comment, right? I mean, failing to say anything at all. What is this wording? It confuses the heck out of me. Hello? Maybe it's correct. I just can't handle this sentence. Hello?
distance itself and its game from multiple crude, disparaging, and misogynistic comments attributed to its employees and leadership.
And also, this is like, what is it? This is interesting because it's triggering me, right? It's the way it's worded is like, okay, first we have vague allusions to alleged comments that could be problematic, and now we got a very specific, like, affirmative cases that this guy is bringing up, this writer, that apparently happened, supposedly, according to the writer. First they're like, oh, well, this is being alleged, and now it's like, oh yeah, it's true, there were bad comments, not just alleged bad comments. You know, the bait and switch. So this is quite triggering, right? But at the same time, again, it's good to remember, the person is being paid to do this kind of partisanship. It doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. They want to prove that they got hired properly for their weird partisan role to divide us and create a smokescreen for big companies to pretend that they're doing something good and they don't need no government or whatever, right? That's part of it. But so that's like the ecosystem these writers want to get paid within, and so they gotta, prove their mettle within that context, and you get something quite triggering like that. Even if it stands for nothing, means nothing, and, well, I feel like if you want to get ahead for yourself, which I do like to emphasize, then this can only slow you down. Maybe not a good thing to lose sleep over this kind of stuff. They got their reasons to do not so great stuff, and yeah, we can call it out, but also it's not unexpected given the structure in play. Plenty money in think tanks and hedge funds and whatnot, and to do with big companies who want to have this kind of stuff going on that they can use to pretend that they're doing something good without it really affecting them where it counts, which is their bottom line.
Journey to the West, of course.
Oh, plus it makes it harder for smaller companies to get in there if they have to deal with this stuff, so bit of an anti-competitive feature there as well.
Of course, is no stranger to the world of video games. From Ninja Theory's 2010 Alex Garland penned and Andy Serkis starring Xbox 360 adaptation Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, to Akira Toriyama's world-conquering Dragon Ball, it's a world of myth and monkeys that lends itself perfectly to gaming. Black Myth Wukong's stunning visuals, cinematic beauty, and refreshing sense of speed could well make it the best playable adaptation of the fable to date. But the unreserved excitement I would otherwise feel about it is being trampled by the elephant in the room.
Whoa.
Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I cannot believe that they wrote this. The elephant in the room, huh? I would imagine the elephant in the room is the fact that the report from IGN was found to be heavily mistranslated and misrepresented, spreading misinformation about a studio either by the way of IGN's ignorance or their malice. The report that they mention is something that was parroted by almost every other gaming news site.
Whoa.
Headlines with this narrative ran wild since the reveal of Black Myth Wukong's trailer a few years ago, making sure that players know, yeah, the game looks cool, but guys, this is a very bad developer. This misrepresentation even led to Game Science's studio allegedly being vandalized by the people that were claiming to do it based on that news of the studio's quote-unquote sexist culture. Eventually, through social media, readers and critics pointed out the mistranslations. Hell, Asmongold...
Gotta be careful with people overstating things on both sides. It happens. Well, I don't lose sleep over this one way or another.
Clips editor, did a better job of reporting and investigating, showing all of the mistranslations.
Context. IGN published an article trying to smear the company and the devs behind Black Myth Wukong as some sexist freaks because of some of their employees' social media posts.
Oh yeah, there
The
was some
article
weird
cites
stuff
one of
going
their
on there.
artists who basically did the still wood meme about this monster. The problem is that this game journalist, either by sheer incompetence or malice, translated these posts in the most uncharitable way possible. And this is nothing compared to the most egregious mistranslation after one of the game company founders posted this in 2020, apologizing for the lackluster trailer of Black Myth Wukong just released. Now, how on earth do you get?
I want to expand my circle and hire more people. Get licked until I can't get an erection.
In reality, the actual translation completely changes the meaning of what he was saying. Not satisfied, I went back checking if anyone called this out when it happened, and they did.
And
That was
ultimately, this all
intentionally.
led to the original writer of the IGN
Pretty
report
awful stuff.
giving a backhanded
If so.
non-apology, avoiding the conversation of
I don't know, though.
mistranslation, still perpetuating the lie, and upset over game
But then you got to stop at some point with repeating the mistranslation, right? So
science's lack of response, and that the game with a Monkey King and a bunch of anthropomorphic characters doesn't have enough femme-coded characters. I am beyond myself. The gall to come forward and say something like maybe they don't want to say anything because they're afraid to say the wrong thing. What
Yeah.
exactly is the wrong thing? Because apparently you already think they said it to begin with, even though it was all mistranslated and
Again, they just wanna
misrepresented in the
get
first
paid.
place. Sure, they may have said some crude things, but you don't understand their culture or the intricacies of their language and how they use colloquialisms and things like that. So you're just applying what you believe onto what they are.
I don't even think there was any sort of like thought going into this. This was like automatic behavior. It's like, okay, there is a mistranslation. It sounds awful. Let's just run with it as if it's true forever. It's just automatic, right? Because that's what they're on a payroll for, in part, in good part potentially.
saying.
Like you don't even think about it.
I'm appalled. It's just ridiculous is what it is.
Like I can't even be appalled by it. This is what they get paid for. Like, hey, when I say get a hat for yourself, I also mean don't lose sleep over this. Health is number one. It's important, and I definitely I won't let this stop me from having good faith in humanity either. You know, it's like the other thing I like to say is don't be a sucker. Yeah. There's all these good things you could be doing, but you might get roped into stupid stuff or end up on a payroll where you do really dumb stuff like these quote-unquote gaming journalists or whatnot. But, you know, I'm just saying, it's probably good to be a bit zen about these things. That's what I think.
I'm shocked. I don't even really know how.
And hey, if you get suckered into some carrying water for something that sounds good at first glance, but then you have to write articles like this without even thinking about it, you know what? Live and learn. Maybe in 5 years' time, these gaming news journalists, quote unquote, they're gonna be in a better place, you know? Maybe some of them at least. I don't care one way or another, honestly. And I encourage people to not lose sleep over this one way or another. And, you know, don't lose your faith in the humanity.
To respond to something like this. I think that Western critics and game journalists, not all of them, but some of them, view these Chinese-made games and games made in some other countries as a threat. Because these are studios that will not fall in line with whatever their narrative is, even if they are in the wrong.
Yeah, again, they want to show that they're on a payroll for good reason, that they have power.
Because there are times, and there have been times in the past, where the media was wrong about something, but still wanted and still pressured the studios to do something and say something.
Like, in a way, it's just a ceremony. It's like a ritual. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like, it's just an innocent mistake. But the point is, these gaming journalists, quote unquote, they want to extract compliance from these foreign game studios. They want to show that they have to bend the knee to this crowd. Again, that makes them powerful. It shows that they're on a payroll for a reason, and they can stay on a payroll. It shows that they're part of an ecosystem where they can exercise some sort of power over these companies, which may come in handy at some other point. The topic doesn't matter. The point is that you want the companies, from the perspective of these people paying those people on the payroll, those gaming journalists, quote unquote, that they can show that, okay, the company has to bend the knee to these quote unquote gaming journalists. Whatever hedge fund is paying these folks, or whatnot, or whatever strange constructs are being used to get these people on a payroll, the value is that the companies will bend the knee. And so whatever at some later point is going to be the thing they want, whatever it could be really, it could be something totally different, could then be inserted or, Anyway, so this is really existential for these quote-unquote gaming journalists.
Something that otherwise went against it. And that's exactly what they're trying to do now. Still running with the exact same narrative, even though it's already been disproven. What is the point of that? Because now what they want is that even though it's been disproven, well, we still want you to tell us that you like women. What are you doing? What is the point of this? And even more so when you're...
It looks ridiculous, but it really makes a lot of sense from the perspective of the people who are getting paid to write articles like that. They want that authority to be able to go to a company, and the company, they got to bend the knee. Or there's no point having these people on the payroll, these quote-unquote gaming journalists, right? If they can't extract that level of compliance from the company, the gaming company, and why even put these people on a payroll? Well, they may have to find a new business model at this rate.
Putting out an article talking about the overall feeling of the game, how much you enjoyed the game, and then you have to put something like that in there. Like, we don't know what you're trying to do.
It's about power.
Trying to spin a narrative around this game to make it feel like, man, you should probably feel bad about playing this game, guys. You should feel bad about it. They're bad people over there. They say mean things on the internet. They say crude things on the internet.
And that's not the point. Like, they're just saying that so they can prove that they have power over these companies.
Dare they? I think the worst thing possible out of all the things that they said.
And that's how they want to get paid. And, that's the way a lot of things work. I like how we can model classic financial incentive sort of interactions on this rather tame topic.
There was an image of like a snake woman, like a lady that was like, her head was a regular person, but her...
And so you might not get suckered into some other thing, Like into not working together with people who are in a similar situated. So you could get ahead more easy if you don't get suckered into weird stuff like this in totally different contexts.
Body was like a snake. It was some like horror creature, and they were like still wood. Are you serious? What, like they're not allowed to be human and take part in meme culture? Are you serious? What is this? What, like this like thought policing and I don't know, man. Like,
hey, it's about the bottom line again. At the end of the day, it's not about this. It's not about that. It's about right now we talk about this, and this is the boogeyman. And if the company don't applaud to us, hunt the boogeyman down, the metaphoric boogeyman, then we have a problem because we don't have power over the company.
I'm so happy that their position was, we're working on the demo right now, and that's the only thing that we want to talk about. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that actually matters. Mm-hmm. The game matters. What they do outside of that has no impact whatsoever on what consumers actually care about in the first place.
Yeah, but then you don't pay the quote-unquote gaming journalists because then they can't insert whatever message they might want to insert a couple years down the line. If the gaming company don't bend the knee, then how are you gonna... Why would you keep paying those gaming journalists? Come on. It all makes sense.
Some of these some of these journalists and games media heads wonder why they're losing subscribers, want to know why they're losing readers. Well, it's probably because of the fact you keep putting things in your articles and in these discussions that don't belong there in the first place. I originally went...
Like, when I want to read about a game, like, I want to get ahead in Wuthering Waves or whatnot, I go to game8.co or whatnot, Game8, that's where I go to. Because I know them from the Japanese internet. They used to have Blue Archive guides, they discontinued those, but anyway, I know my websites to go to, and I think when you Google something, Game8 actually does pop up nowadays, so... in English, they got some good programming, right? So Game8 goes for the content to do with the game, and then some other quote-unquote gaming journalists, they go for the being on a payroll of some hedge fund to demonstrate that they have control over companies. Right? I mean, it's a different business model. Right? Like Game8, they have journalism about new games and stuff, and then other companies, they have that too, but they have fundamentally different business models at times, right?
To go and read that article because it was talking about their first impressions, and I was just trying to gather a bunch of people's first impressions on the game, and then all of a sudden you want to go off on this tangent on something that was already...
And I will just have to mention this, but if it wasn't for people reacting to these silly articles on certain quote-unquote gaming journalist websites, if it wasn't about the reporting on YouTube, I wouldn't even know this is happening. Alright? Like, I wouldn't even know it. So, in a weird way, this is all... It makes it into a topic that people can have a take on, right? Like, I'm having a take on this that's not directly related to the topic, and I think it's a good use of my time. I think I can communicate something worthwhile to people watching the video, like get ahead for yourself and don't lose sleep over this. And by the way, health is number one. And don't lose your faith in humanity, right? I can do that. And so, in a weird way, all this does is a signal boost that there is a new game coming out. And look at this. People are now playing it, and a lot of them are playing it, and it seems like people are having a great time with it. Amazing. It's like all these quote-unquote gaming journalists are doing is make this into a more popular game. And I don't know. I like it, I guess. I mean, what's the big deal? I don't understand. It's an ecosystem, isn't it? And I sure wonder where this is going to go next, because I feel like a lot of people are going to get fired because they can't have power over these gaming studios, right? So there's going to be new stuff coming down the line, right? So that's exciting. I'm excited what's going to happen next with big corporation and big hedge fund and whatnot trying to exercise power over what people enjoy one way or another. Let's see. I'm quite excited.
Disproven in the first place. What are we doing?
Like, it intellectually intrigues me. Just what kind of angle could they be going for next, like in 5 years' time?
What is this? You know, this isn't the first time we've seen this. The Wizard game. Yeah, that's right. Hogwarts Legacy. Game critics and journalists dogpiled this game as hard as they could. Wired.com gave it a 1 out of 10, not because of the gameplay, not because of the aesthetics, but because of the fact that J.K. Rowling had something to do with it, even though they're just the creator of the source material and actually had nothing to do with the actual creation of the video game, but that didn't matter. Meanwhile, a slew of other reviewers boycotted even reviewing the game in the first place. Some magazines didn't even post reviews whatsoever. And many of those that did actually review it still made sure to drop a little piece of their mind about J.K. Rowling in the reviews. What are the chances that we see the same thing with Black Myth Wukong? Is it going to suffer the same fate?
I mean, I'm not going to say that this is like a bad thing just because I disagree and I see that there's bad reasons for people to say these things. I'm thinking like, hey, if they're gonna get paid for saying, like, for dropping like a little like criticism of J.K. Rowling that they don't even understand themselves, it's like, I mean, I don't love it, but I mean, if you're gonna get paid for it, I mean, good for you, but like, don't sell your soul over that, you know? Like, that's, you know, live and learn. And also don't, like, just because you have to peddle the Kool-Aid doesn't mean you have to drink it, right? I mean, anyway, so I always enjoy thinking of the angle where people get something out of it for themselves and then can use their added capacities and resources for something positive in the world.
Regardless of how many people tried to derail Hogwarts Legacy, it ended up being the first title in 15 years to beat Call of Duty in sales, selling 23 million copies in 2023, proving that social issues have no impact whatsoever on what games players want to play and what they want to buy. Hell, back when Activision Blizzard went through their major controversy, the players that were leaving the game weren't leaving because of what happened at the company, they were quitting because the game sucked. And as soon as they came out with a new expansion, the vast majority of the players returned to the game. I think that there are those in media today that are afraid of losing influence, afraid of games, studios, and publishers that they can't pressure in some way, shape, or form. If the readers aren't listening and the game makers don't listen either, then their relevance is nothing more than a flickering candle in the wind and they're running out of wick.
Yeah.
There is no...
But of course, you can always switch it up, have some new good thing go on, and for a couple of years exercise some sort of influence. For whatever reason. I'm not even sure this does a whole lot besides create an atmosphere of division that isn't really there if the money wasn't there to pay for the divisive line.
Verifiable proof of game science mistreating their employees. And the only thing that you have to go off of are some jokes that they have made on the internet that any other human would make. Things that you see all of the time. Creating victims out of thin air. What's probably worse for them is the truth that they're coming to realize. Customers only...
Like, people are broadly good people. That's just how it is. In fact, some argue that it is because people want to be good, they can be manipulated into doing terrible things. Or like turning a blind eye for when your superiors, quote unquote, are doing terrible things because it's for some good thing, right? Like, some of the worst things in the world, I think, have happened in part because of this not wanting to disrupt the good thing. I mean, some really dark things happened that way.
Care about the value of the product itself and not how it was made or who it was made by. Catering to these niche audiences who actually do buy things based on morals is useless because likely they don't even exist in the first place, and even if they did, they probably don't even play video games. This is only another factor that devalues the perspective and the voice of traditional games media and reviewers. And I know that there are good professional journalists and reviewers that are out there, but I wish that they were calling this kind of stuff out, especially the writer from IGN and The Guardian, because this is only serving to damage their credibility. And
oh, but how are they getting paid? Well, because they have used to somebody who pays them, right? I mean, don't tell me it's just the readership that pays them. Come on.
The credibility of all games media. The lack of independent
quote-unquote games media, I'll insist on that one, quote-unquote games media.
Thought and reasoning within games media today is staggering.
I actually think it's kind of endearing how he really believes that there is a thing known as games media. And I mean, it probably exists, but like, I think if you pull out a lot of the big money, you end up with sites like Game 8, and that's it, right? I mean, that would be good. So right now, referring to games media, I think is rather deceptive in a way. I'm not saying he's trying to deceive you. I'm just saying I think there's too much money going around in quote-unquote games media that's only in there to try to get some sort of leverage over gaming studios for whatever reason.
It just blows my mind. At this point, I cannot wait for Black Myth Wukong to come out. Not because I can't wait to play it, which obviously I can't wait to play it, but just to see the hot takes. Because you know for a fact, because for how long some of these...
It's been doing great, right? It's out now. This game's doing great. I wonder if there's going to be criticism again. Maybe I'll have to react to that. I sure wonder if there's going to be some angle.
Different articles, journalists, and media sites have been running this headline and running with this narrative. You know they're going to be including that stuff going forward. Still trying to ask and find out. Yeah, but you still didn't say that.
I mean, at some point they'll just be like quiet about it and pretend it never happened. Because the point isn't anything of the substance. The point is that these quote-unquote gaming journalists on a payroll for some hedge fund and whatnot, they just want to prove that they have value to whoever pays the bills, which in many cases isn't the target audience, right? So of course they'll just be like, never talk about this again, right? Like, in fact, that's I think what's gonna happen. We might just not see any more hot takes now that the game has been a success, right? It's just gone. It's just gone because you don't get paid for losing in this sort of space, right?
No, it doesn't reflect on your studio or anything like that. What does that even matter? Like, they haven't made a joke or a crude joke or anything like that in the past. It's so disingenuous. And that's one of the reasons why the vast majority of people have just completely turned off of reading articles or IGN or any of these companies anymore.
I'm thinking this is something everyone goes through. Everyone starts out being like, okay, I like games. I can read about games when I Google for something. And then there is this website. Oh, yeah, IGN and whatnot. And oh, yeah. And then 5 years later, they'll be like, oh yeah, IGN, I will never browse that site again. Oh yeah. So they just go through the young people. And, you know, that's a lot of influence you can have that way. Anyway, right? So I think that's something like that may be going on.
More is because it's so disingenuous. It's so fake.
Yeah.
It's so fake. You don't care about any of these things. You're just searching for a headline that you hope will get clicks. That's all it is.
And not even that. They also want to insert an agenda, whatever it is. Again, it will probably change in short order, the kind of agenda, as long as it's good for dividing people. That could be a goal in its own right, if it's some hedge fund that's paying for it. And there could be a lot more. If it has a lot more influence over people, there could be a lot more you could do with that, right? So they'll always keep fishing for a way to get their bottom line improved and get the government off of their arses, you know, those big companies and their hedge funds and think tanks. They'll always keep looking. They always keep digging that collective thought space, right?
Everybody can see it. Everybody knows it. And most of this stuff now, you're just making it up out of thin air. It's just even worse. Because now it's not only that, we didn't find you entertaining, right? So we stopped reading because of that. But now we can't even trust the words that you say because you're just going to say whatever you want.
And if you keep getting fresh people into the space, more young people keep getting into the space. So, that means I'm thinking people should really look into creating hedge funds and think tanks and whatnot to offset this kind of pressure with a little more pro-humanity, and people are gonna enjoy the things they enjoy, and it's gonna be alright sort of messaging. That would be cool, maybe.
To hopefully try to get somebody
Also freedom of speech.
to look at what you're saying. What's funny is, and I should have brought this up, I might end up making another video about this, but recently I just saw that PC Gamer put out an article talking about putting community notes on YouTube videos, and how this games writer was talking about how how much YouTubers like to lie.
Whoa.
Pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, that's
Meanwhile, none of these journalists seem to hold.
And I say this at a cat girl, meow. Cat girl on the internet. Not in real life, clearly.
Hold each other accountable. You guys ever notice that? You see YouTubers all the time. They'll go back and forth. Somebody will say something. They'll hold them honest. They'll make videos on it. Obviously, they can farm it.
Yeah.
But you don't often see any of these games journalists ever going after one another for anything. Somebody writes a bad article or they lie about something or misrepresent something. Nobody wants to talk about it.
I mean, they're probably all on the same group of people's payroll. Maybe.
At least not on the professional side. I mean, they could call that professionalism. I could call it dishonest.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, again, it may just be more automatic than even with any sort of intent. So where's the honesty gonna be if you just act automatically anyway?
I'm looking forward to Black Myth.
Or the dishonesty for that matter.
Wukong, what about you guys? Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and catch me live on Twitch if you guys want to watch me play some video games, talk about gaming news, and chill out.
If I was playing more games and spending more money on games, not just play my gacha games, I would definitely play Black Myth Wukong, that's for sure. And that was a nice video. We'll link it below. Leave him a like, comment, rate, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. Also over here, rate, comment, subscribe, share. And I hope you have a good one. Stay safe out there. Good health is number one. And all the other good stuff. Hope we meet again. Meow.